My name is Monde Michelo Marshall. I am a Zambian qualified lawyer. I passed the QLTS on my first attempt. My training contract was in Zambia. I qualified there in 2009, then moved to the UK later that year. I practiced for a short while in Zambia. And then when I came here, it was challenging to find a job because at the time I wasn't qualified as a solicitor. I moved to work into a Middle Eastern law firm that's affiliated with the US firm here in the UK. And that's pretty much where I've been since then. I do a lot of domestic advisory work that's based out of the Middle East. I wanted to take the QLTS mainly because my career had largely progressed as a domestic lawyer. But in spite of that, most of the domestic work I was given had a very large international aspect to it. And you find that most of the lawyers that work out of the UK are solicitors who manage large international transactions and hire out a lot of domestic lawyers. Now, having seen the angle from the domestic lawyer's perspective, I thought it was time for me to see what it's like to be in charge of the transaction. As a qualified solicitor, I have more opportunities to see that, and that was one of the main drivers. The second reason I took the exam was for career progression, really, within my own firm, because I felt that I didn't want to be bypassed anymore for any promotions, because the firm can only take you so far when you're not a solicitor and working in the UK. So continuing to practice as a foreign lawyer would have limited my progression within my firm. I took the preparation course because I strongly believe that lawyers shouldn't really, not just lawyers, anybody shouldn't really do anything without being prepared. And so it was necessary for me to ensure that I was ready for the assessments before I sat them. I took the assessments and studied with the QLTS School because they were the best marketed. They were the biggest in the market at the time. And I heard personal reference from someone I met at a talk that was held here in London. My experiences of studying with the QLTS School varied slightly for the MCT and then for the OSCE. With the MCT, it was very individual-based study, online resources. With OSCE, you did have a lot of online resources, but you also had to read a lot of text and then get on to see about getting a tutorial or a mock exam with a designated tutor. That was beneficial in that it gave you deadlines. The tutor was available at this time, and so you had to have read by the time that you've set with your tutor. It meant that there was a second person looking out for me, and it avoided procrastination, really. So I found that it was very helpful. It just helped me, get on and push myself. I found that the QLTS online resources were actually the most useful for me. I could see notes and stored up notes that were kept there from tutors who have read materials over a long period of time. So it was summarized for me. I didn't have to read substantial amounts of text. So when I first purchased all the material that everyone says you need to buy before you take the assessments, I was a bit daunted that it was so much text. But when I visited the online resources, there were notes on there, there were tips, there were questions that you could do after you studied a particular amount of text. And so I found QLTS online to be actually the most useful part of the course. For the MCT, I didn't take as much time preparing as I should have. Or at least as people say that you should. I passed it anyway on my first attempt, but I only started reading the material 2 weeks and 3 days before the assessment date. I had to read it really quickly But what I found most useful was I did more practice questions than anything else. And even when I was taking the exam, I felt that some of the questions were a repetition. When I had to study for the OSCE, on the other hand, a lot less material was available on what kind of questions they ask you. Just because it's the way that it's designed. Kaplan don't give anything other than what's on their website. So even my tutor did advise me that I should take a little bit more time to prepare because I was not going to stop working just to take this exam. So I started reading the text 3 months before the date, and I had to prepare in the evenings and my Saturdays. My firm was generally very supportive of my studies. To begin with, the firm supported me financially in taking the exam. There was the possibility of me taking the time off, and I had actually been cleared to take time off to do the OSCE, but the demands of the clients always seemed to come first. And so I didn't manage to actually take the time off because I had to do some client work. But what I found really supportive from them was that they were not giving me anything new. So I was generally dealing with clients that I had before and trying to close up matters that were already open. For the MCT, when you first arrive, you have nerves, and so you feel as if you haven't prepared, or at least that's what I felt like. When I started to answer the questions, I was a lot more confident. I moved a lot faster, and by the end of the exam, I had no doubt that I had passed the MCT. But when it came to the OSCE, every single assessment date was different, and even in the assessments, you were put in groups. You didn't know where you were going. You didn't know what questions you were going to be asked. So it didn't feel like you were prepared in any of the assessments. You opened the door and it was a magistrate and you had to make a bail application. Or you opened the door and it was a client who was aggrieved about professional negligence. So it was really a surprise in each assessment because it's designed like that. Just because they want you to think on your feet and they're actually examining whether you have those quick skills that you need as a lawyer to improvise. I am now a legal manager at my firm, which is the equivalent of a senior associate. I came to this after my results came out for the QLTS. My role, I think, has grown in that I have more responsibility, but I do feel that I do almost the same work that I did before. I don't know if it's just because it's the firm that I'm working at. So the kind of work that we have is transactional work, and we do a lot of work with people who are already based in the Middle East or want to do business in the Middle East. The QLTS has helped in the sense that I was promoted. So that was a direct consequence. Now, how it's helped me in the legal market, perhaps it's something that my boss wouldn't be happy with, in that I do feel that I'm much more marketable. Much as I still do quite a lot of domestic lawyer work, I do see a lot more of the international transactional side. And I feel that my skills are much more easily transferable now that I've done the QLTS. I feel that it's absolutely vital that everybody should take a preparation course for these exams. For the MCT, because of the nature of multiple choice questions as compared to the nature of legal practice, it's essential that you prepare for yourself for the difference between actually advising a client and giving a yes or no answer. With OSCE, it tests such a wide area. The exam questions could be from pretty much anywhere. Personally, I don't know anyone who practices in all those areas that are tested under the OSCE. So you do have to prepare in the sense that as much as you might be really specialized criminal lawyer, you might not know anything about this other aspect of practice. And therefore, I think preparation is key. I would advise anyone who's taking the exam or thinking about taking the exam to know their own skill set and then plan their time based on how much they know and their own commitments. So for the MCT, I think you can prepare in a month if you have a lot of time, right? Or if you have had substantial amount of experience in English law, particularly if you also know quite a bit about European law. For the OSCE, on the other hand, the amount that's tested there, the subject area being so wide, the practical aspects of it, you should polish up on anything that you don't know anything about. Conveyancing might not be something that you practice at the moment, or it might be something that you know so much of, but not criminal law. So there's a bit more time that should be dedicated to the OSCE, I think. A good 3 months, I think, is enough, which is how much I took. And I didn't think that I needed any more than that. But for the MCT, maybe take a month. I would recommend the QLTS to anybody who's arrived here in the UK, has intentions of continuing to live here in the UK, and wants to continue practicing, to consider it potentially even at the beginning of their career here. So even if you continue to practice largely foreign law, but working out of the UK, I do find that the amount of knowledge that I have now after doing the exams is quite beneficial. So I would recommend the QLTS to every foreign lawyer that I meet, and I would recommend that they take it closer to the beginning of their career. But if that time's fast, I think there's no harm in trying to do it later. I think commercial awareness is right at the top, because when you take away all the pomp that comes with being a lawyer, the reality is that we're in the service industry. And so to better serve our clients, we need to know what's going on with our clients' businesses. I think it's absolutely vital that you keep your ears to the ground on what's happening in your market, in the field that you practice in, or in the field that your clients primarily conduct their business.